Joining us now with reaction is Fox News contributor and syndicated columnist Deroy Murdock and the author of Direct Fire, former Brigadier General Tony Tata. All right, General, I'm going to ask you, since we're talking about that video that supposedly shows an intercontinental ballistic missile that they say has Florida in the background. Now, aside from their ability to do this and whether they have that, are we entering a new phase of a Cold War?
You know, I think we might be, Judge, and I'd just like to back up and say that I think President Trump, just as he unleashed us to defeat ISIS, has done more to attack and defend against Russia than President Obama ever did. And then as we look at the missile that President Putin supposedly showed the launch of, that is, attacking the concept of mutual assured destruction. And what he wants to do is to make sure that we feel uneasy about our ability to defend against the weapons that Russia has. And so we launched off a submarine a intercontinental ballistic missile this week in the Pacific Ocean. So Russia launches its
you don't hear about that as much.
Exactly,
oh, interesting.
Exactly.
Well, but it sounds like a tit for tat again.
Yeah, well, it's very much, and this is very much the almost war by proxy that we had in the Cold War, as you mentioned at the beginning of the segment. And this is through the elements of power: diplomatic, information, military, economic. You see spies being fired. You see information wars. That's an information piece.
They call it a spy spat.
Right. Exactly.
As I was reading, Dory, all the talk about the left and how the president is colluded, although after 14, 15 months, nobody has one iota of evidence. Is this going to hurt the left in terms of the midterms with the president being so tough on Russia? And not only that, Deroy, he's got 23 countries. NATO, they're all backing the president. I mean, when Obama used to talk about it, there was no one behind him. Now there is.
Well, the left has been preaching this gospel for the last year and a half or so, that President Trump is a puppet of Putin and he does whatever Putin says. And yet you've seen, as you said, organizing this diplomatic effort to remove these diplomats from around the world. Just yesterday, I think it was, Poland announced it was going to purchase about $5 billion in anti-missile systems from the United States, pointed to Russia, I'm sure. Trump has provided offensive weapons to Ukraine. I think about a month ago or so, there was an attack on 100 Russian mercenaries in Syria. They're now dead. So if he's a puppet of Putin, he's not a very well-behaved one.
Well, that's very well said.
Puppet.
There was talk today about two of our astronauts are on a vessel, on a Russian vessel that has gone into, I guess, outer space, the Soviet Soyuz. I mean, so is this all talk, given that, everybody knows we've got Americans on this Russian vessel or whatever it's called?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, Judge, is that this is information warfare. This is two countries posturing for power in the power vacuum that was left by the Obama administration before. President Trump and his national security strategy talks very much about peer competitors, China and Russia. And as I said, he's done more to compete now against China, Russia, North Korea than the previous administration. And we've got a $1 trillion worth of 30 years of modernization of the nuclear weapon arsenal that we've got, that President Trump has laid out. So he's taken this seriously, and he's standing up to Russia.
Right, and he's got some force behind his words. But Deroy, Russia's acting like they're the victims in this whole thing. That they didn't deserve to be booted out. But the deadly nerve agent that was used, that no one could really, I guess, prove beyond a reasonable doubt, the daughter is now talking. She can, I imagine, tell us how the nerve agent was delivered, who may have delivered it, who the last person was that she saw. Things aren't looking good for the Russians, if indeed it is, as everyone is suggesting, the Russians who did this.
Yeah, I mean, we've had somebody who I guess the Russians may have wanted to be a corpse, who's now, it turns out, to be a witness, and she may be able to speak up and give this exact kind of evidence you're talking about. I think it's also fascinating that this case and other cases where people have been basically assassinated by Moscow, that they don't just use rat poison or put a pillow over somebody's face. They're using the kinds of agents that are tied back to Moscow, almost as if they want to leave their fingerprints behind. I wonder if that's something they deliberately want to do, maybe sending a message to others rather than just eliminating somebody who they find inconvenient.
All right, Deroy Murdock, General Tata, thanks for being with us.